The shot was taken on Gardner-Webb's campus last fall. The university has such a special place in my heart. Not only did I love my 4 years I spent there as a student, but I also left my job at the university to come on the world race. This was taken at a school in the Dominican Republic. It was a really hard morning, and these children need consistent people investing in them. If a Gardner-Webb student or alumnus has a heart for teaching children in poverty, this would be a great place to work because of the need. We taught English at 2 different schools in Ecuador. These are the youngest children from the Christian school. Children all around the world love taking crazy photos. This day represents a typical day in ministry. This was in Panama, but I've sanded, normally by hand, in at least 3 different countries. I think I've painted in every country as well. My team has experienced a lot of manual labor. In August, I got to invite my parents to visit me in Nicaragua. For 5 days, we got to serve alongside one another at church and community events. This picture is the 3 of us playing a game with children in the village. Getting to serve alongside my parents internationally is an experience that I'll always cherish. That morning, we had been divided up. I was teaching the youth, and my parents are with the children. At one point, I came around the corner and saw the 2 of them and a slew of children playing together. There weren't any others from our team around, just both of my parents and 15 to 20 children. My parents don't speak any Spanish, and those kids don't speak any English, but in that moment, it didn't matter. In Nicaragua, we visited several different churches with our host pastor. We always had to wear skirts, but some churches were so traditional that they asked us to remove or at least hide our earrings. This particular church fell on the less conservative side and allowed a woman to speak at the women's gathering. Really, it was a mix of men and women present. So for the second time in my life, I got to share the entire 30-minute sermon. We lived in the slums of Tegucigalpa, Honduras, an area where it was unsafe for us to leave the property alone, and we had to have a local sleep at the church with us every night for our protection. We didn't feel unsafe, but they were concerned about us because of the gang-related activity in our area. Our host pastor has been very blessed with opportunities to share the gospel with gang members. Apparently, in that area, Christians are respected simply because of their beliefs. When Pastor Giovanni first began working in that area, he walked out onto the soccer field across from the church where the gang members were smoking pot. He handed each of them a Pepsi. They were ashamed because they didn't want to have him there while they were smoking, but he didn't care. He's now built relationships with these gang members, and they repeatedly promise to take care of him. Every time that comes up, he assures them that he doesn't need their protection because God is protecting him. He and another man now host regular soccer tournaments to keep boys involved in something more positive and off the streets. The games happen every Saturday, and following the game, everyone is invited to church for a water break and a lesson. So every Saturday, we had the opportunity to share the gospel through lessons, games, and activities. A lot of the activities we did, I learned during my time at Gardner-Webb's Focus Ministry. Every Saturday, we saw these boys respond to the gospel. It was in Frank Nanny Hall at Gardner-Webb during a Deaf Club mission trip report that I first learned about the city dump in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. Stories the mission team shared broke my heart. When we arrived in Honduras and was told there was a possibility of visiting, I was ecstatic to see the place that was so dear to so many of my friends. Our time there was very brief, but powerful nevertheless. All 3 of these photos were taken when I got to visit my Compassion-sponsored child. Over the years, I've gotten more involved with Compassion, but my first experience working a Compassion event was at Gardner-Webb the night Sean Groves spoke at Verge. I helped man the table and do the packet pass, 2 of my favorite jobs now. I love getting to watch families pick out their new siblings or see college students band together and say, yes, we can come up with $38 a month. I sponsored child's father in front of their home. He and his wife live there with their 4 children. The home doesn't have running water or electricity, and they use an indoor fire to cook all of their food. Compassion encourages sponsors to take gifts when they visit their children. One of the items I chose to take to her is a Gardner-Webb bag. In a most recent letter to me, Sandra wrote that she wants to go to college one day. So I took her a Gardner-Webb bag and notebook to tell her that that's where I went to college, and someday she'll be able to go to college too. My first experience with international missions was through a Gardner-Webb trip my sophomore year to Guatemala led by Neil Payne. My senior year, before I graduated, I went on another trip, this time to Nicaragua. It's now fun, 5 years later, to be wrapping up my time in Latin America, in Guatemala, the very same place where it all started.